Hello. It is beyond a privilege to welcome you all to the first annual New Music Gathering under the auspices and aegis of the mighty San Francisco Conservatory of Music. We can clap. This all started rather casually with a conversation between myself and Matt Marks, saying, why don't we have a place where we can actually talk about these issues in a safe, productive, and interested environment, in a place where we could all, not be afraid of other people judging us because we like something they didn't understand. And in an effort to build community, in an effort to build nice people talking about nice things. So this is not a community, this is a start, this is a sliver, this is an important chunk of a community, and we hope this will only get bigger and we will get to meet more people. And I just want to say I think this exists because it has to exist, and I am privileged to be standing on the stage with these people. All of us, if you don't know us, are active composers of a very different stripe, and that is, to me, one of the most important things that this year's talk and this year's conference, which is about artist-led ensembles, is in fact one big artist-led production, and I think that's one of the most important things we have to offer. So thank you, welcome, enjoy.
Hi everyone, it's my job to share some rules with you guys. Yes! All right, first and foremost, the main rule that we're trying to all kind of abide to is to be very aware of the timeliness of your sets. We wanted to accept as many, thank you. We wanted to accept as many of you as possible who submitted proposals, and as such, we've scheduled a lot of things very, very close together. So be very aware of when you start and when you check out. A lot of the slots, say if you have a 45-minute slot, that includes your setup time, your presentation, and your breakdown. Please come 15 minutes early to your set in hopes that you can set up a little early as well. Also, please be courteous to all of the wonderful staff here at the Conservatory. They've been so great. They're all volunteering crazy hours to put this all together, so be very nice to them, especially the sound crew, because they're magicians and are gonna make you sound really great. As far as areas in the Conservatory that we could all hang and mingle and meet people, if we could limit that to the cafe, which is on the floor below where there's wonderful coffee and everything, and also on the second floor there's an atrium that's kind of nice and quiet and has loungy seats, that would be great. The Conservatory is open to its students right now, so they're practicing and they're using all of those public spaces too, so be very kind and considerate to them as well. Also, we have a digital program this year. We're trying to be green. So on the top of the schedule, there's a hyperlink. It's newmusicgathering.org/program. And the rule for these concert spaces is no food or drinks in the halls. I know some of us have drinks this morning, but after this, if we could bring the drinks outside, that would be appreciated. And then lastly, share the news about this, post on social media, tweet. Our Twitter feed has been blowing up with all of your wonderful comments, so thank you. Our hashtag is NMG2015, and that's it from me. Here's some warm, fuzzy feelings from Lainie coming. Welcome, Lainie.
Hi, warm, fuzzy feelings. Okay, so first off, a lot of you I don't know. This is my first full day in San Francisco. I'm Lainie Fefferman. I'm a composer. I co-founded Exapno New Music Community Center in Brooklyn with that guy down there, that's Yasha Narvison, and that guy over there, that's Kevin Clark, and next to him, Dan Iglesia, one of our first members. So a huge part of my life is about new music community, which is why when Matt and Danny and Mary asked me, I was so excited to help them put this amazing thing on. I just thought I'd share my quick, warm, fuzzy wish for this whole event. I see members of our community who have this beautiful gift for introducing themselves to everyone and throwing their music out into the world, and those are not the only people whose music is worth listening to and worth playing and worth caring about. So it's my hope that in this crazy event, there will be a chance for all kinds of connections between people who are great on social media and never use social media, and are the kind of people who walk up to each other after a concert and go, "My name is Lainie Fefferman, I'm a composer and I'd like to write for you," and people who would never dream of doing that. So in my mind, the success of this event is not necessarily the wonderful things that are going to happen in these 3 days, but when I look on Facebook in 10 years and I see the amazing collaborations that have happened from two people who wouldn't have known each other if not for listening to each other's music here, or of people who didn't Facebook friend each other and find out about a concert and get excited about a new composer or a new performer they wouldn't have known about. So my big hope is that everyone's going to friend each other on Facebook, and everyone's going to introduce themselves, and everyone's going to go to the amazing composer-performer speed dating that Brooks is going to do for us. So I really encourage you, don't just go, "That was awesome, it's done," but really milk this for all it's worth, and introduce yourself, and tell people what you do. And with that, we're going to thank a lot of people. Matt Lawrence.
All right, I'm the tall one, so I'm gonna have to lean down. Danny talking about the beginnings kind of made me think of a little funny anecdote, which is very short, which is a lot of people have come to us and been like, "New Music Gathering, that kind of sounds like Magic the Gathering." All I can say is that was 100% the inspiration. Well, it started off as a joke, like, what if we called it New Music the Gathering, you know, like, and then we were like, that's ridiculous. Some other names, we thought of a bunch of other names, all of which were horrible, and then we kept coming back to that, and then we were like, you know what, that's what this is really all about, just a gathering. It's not a competition, it's not like a, you know, concert that we're all stressed out for and we need to perform our best or else we're gonna fail. It's really just about a bunch of people coming together who are all interested in new music in tons of different forms. So with that, there are so many people we want to thank. Unfortunately, we don't have like 2 hours, so I'm gonna keep it pretty slim right now. Big thing is everybody who submitted proposals. A lot of you are here right now doing them. A lot of people who submitted proposals, unfortunately, we weren't able to make room for this year. And that does not mean that we were like, that's not good and that sucks. It was really just like, okay, we want to get a really good representation for this year. So we hope that if we didn't select you for this year, that you'll apply next year and the next year and everything like that, because it was amazing looking at all the stuff we got in. I want to thank everybody leading up to this, like Lainie says, who's been sharing on social media. It's been astounding. Basically, at the end of the day, we look and there's like over 100 mentions on Twitter, like every day. It's crazy. Thank you so much for doing that, and please keep doing that. I want to thank Exapno and Lainie. I know we're thanking ourselves, but it's been really, really helpful having her nonprofit with all the financial stuff. It's been great. Huge shout out to the staff at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. In particular, a special shout out goes to Mary Claire Britztava. Who basically, you know, Danny mentioned this started as a, you know, very casual conversation on Facebook, essentially like, why don't we have something like this? Oh, but it shouldn't be like all the other things. And then she said, hey, that sounds like, you know, an idea that, you know, San Francisco Conservatory, her employer, might be kind of interested in doing. And it's been astounding just seeing how open-minded and amazing they are, and Mary Claire in particular has put in a ton of work and has been fighting really hard, tooth and nail, to get us everything that our crazy minds have been asking for, and she's been unbelievable. Another person to mention is the president of San Francisco Conservatory, David Stull, without whom this would not be possible in the slightest. And the more that we've gotten to see this place and be shown around, the more completely astounded we are at just the level of like modernization that they have here. It's crazy, you know. We're coming from New York, where everything's falling down and covered in rats and stuff like that. So we were like, they're like, check out our new studio and our new board, and we're just salivating. It's amazing, and I think he's been very instrumental in bringing this place into the 21st century. And it seems to me like perhaps the most modern conservatory that I know of. In the United States. It's amazing. So I would actually love to have him come up right now, David Stull, to say a few words.
First of all, Daniel, Mary, Matt, Lainie, our thanks to you, you guys. You've done a fantastic job on this, and seriously, this does come from them. So you guys, thank you very much. I will endeavor, of course, to be very brief. I think one of the great things I love about this conference is it's not just one panel after another panel after another panel, but that it's actually riddled with music. I have to say, I've seen more and more talking about the future of music and less playing in the conversations. I have to say, I think that's a mistake. So the balance this conference brings is really a refreshing change in the world. I can't say enough about Mary Claire and the work she's done on this, and certainly here at the Conservatory and launching new programs. But to that end, I have to tell you, I am privileged to have joined really one of the most extraordinary faculties I've had a chance to work with, but certainly getting a chance to know the great alumni here from SFCM, the Bay Area, who are really advancing music in extraordinary ways, in many different ways. One of the things I found that was quite remarkable here is how there's been a fountain of so many different minds out of the same place. And they're doing great things, many of which you will get a chance to hear. I looked at a potential opportunity of literally identifying all the SFC alums who are participating in the conference, and it's this long on the page. So I want to send my very best to all of them. Quickly, I have an article here from the New York Times, and it says, 8 music schools seek a survival plan. And this, of course, is the usual suspects: New England Conservatory, Juilliard, San Francisco, Peabody, Manhattan, having come together to talk about the rising cost of tuition, the fact that teachers are scandalously underpaid, that the need for scholarships and support is really quite extraordinary, and that times are desperate. I'd like to point out that this article was published on January 20th, 1970, as a matter of fact. Yes, here's the 44 years of crisis, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, it's more like 644 years of crisis. I want to talk about that a bit because I think this is so important for what we do. And I want to get a couple messages across. I've seen this term, crisis. I don't find any use for it, and I'm not criticizing those who have used it, but I'll tell you why. Lehman Brothers, I'm sure all of you are familiar with that term, one of the largest financial entities in the world, literally collapsed in 2008. But the New York Philharmonic continues to play concerts every night. Now, we look at Lehman. They brought in enough money in a single year to have endowed every conservatory and major program in the country, every orchestra, every opera company, to have 20-fold increased the endowment of the NEA and started a forum for composers and new works that probably been an endowment around $100 million. And that was probably quarter number 1. And I'm actually not exaggerating about the money. It's that much. And it's gone today. And yet today we're talking about booming financial markets. How very interesting. I think what we take away from that is that the opportunity for success is always there, as is the opportunity for failure, and inevitably doing something new leads to both from time to time. The other thing I've noticed is a lot of talk about entrepreneurial work, and indeed, yes, we all need to be entrepreneurial. Certainly, as I think about this school and its future, as we imagine how we do our very best to give students everything they need, I do believe that now an education for life is what must come out of a major music school, and a knowledge of how to navigate the environment. But there's no replacement, as we do provide a foundation for understanding the economics of music, or frankly the economics of business, more importantly, to just being a dog with a bone, okay? Seizing opportunity and having tremendous perseverance and a will to do what it is that you choose to do is still the defining quality of success. And the other thing is, folks, everyone looks to us to talk about the state of our profession. They do. We are the experts. We define the culture of what it is that we do. And I find it very interesting here, especially in these conservatories that are now passing the century mark, many well past the century mark, that we celebrate this great canon, and it is a great canon, but inevitably don't necessarily celebrate the culture of the individuals that created the canon, which was innovation. None of them were thinking about anything except writing new music. And yet, often the culture in our schools becomes something that's so formalized that we can reject inadvertently the new or the creative, the thoughts that come to us about we can do it this way. And I do think the music school of the future has to be the one that's not just about a great education, but one where it overtly creates the conditions for highly creative work. And I do think that is the future, and I think all of you represent that. And I have to say it is an honor to have you with us, because you guys are the one that's going to carve out the future in really interesting, exciting ways, and have already in such remarkable ways that the last thing I would do is describe it as a crisis. Is what we do hard? Yes. Is it challenging? Yes. Are there days that we think, why am I doing this? Yes. But that only tells us that I think we really are doing something that matters and is important. And so I congratulate you on that. Finally, a couple of other quick notes. One, I love the speed dating of composers and performers. That's fantastic. Yes. Brilliant. And a little side note about that, as a tuba player, composers find a tuba player, we will play anything. I'll tell you right now. And also when it comes to speed dating, we'll date anybody too. So the truth is, I think that's really exciting. What I want to close with is that I do think that we are at a time of great optimism. I love the fact that I have so many friends who are out from New York and have had made so many new friends here in San Francisco. The world is coming together in a way that is much smaller and at the same time so much larger than it ever was before. And I think it has yielded far more opportunities than challenges. But I would say to you, it's not just about seizing opportunity, but is in fact converting challenge into opportunity, which is going to really create the future for all of us. So ladies and gentlemen, my best wishes. Have a wonderful conference. This is more than a safe space. It's a safe space that entirely believes in what you're doing and actually sees what you're doing as the future. Have a great time here. Now, I am actually here to also introduce our keynote speaker. It has been my great pleasure to know Claire Chase for a very long time. She has been an individual that all of us have seen not only just build a terrific ensemble, but has allowed her imagination, in fact, to lead not just the advancement of music and how we bring music to communities, but also developing an economic model that is very interesting and exotic. It's an ensemble that does not have to take care of a concert hall. Believe me, if the New York Philharmonic, you're spending a lot of time trying to keep up Avery Fisher Hall rather than just a single ensemble, those economics make a difference. It's an ensemble that allows artists to contribute to the leadership of the organization and integrates the challenges of the economics with the opportunities for artistic work. And more importantly, it's one that really believes in working with composers in the advancement of new music and performing new music. Finally, what I would say about Claire is that her eternal optimism is matched by a keen awareness of the audience. It's not to say the audience dictates the direction of art, but a sense of how do we curate and introduce new art to an audience that needs that introduction. And in all of those ways, I found her to be such an extraordinary person. But finally, she's been a great friend and a great colleague for a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, Claire Chase.
Thank you so much, David, and good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with all of you, and I'm so grateful to this mighty team. Matt, Mary, Dan, Lainie, you guys are incredible, and I'm so grateful for the invitation to be a part of this explosively awesome gathering of music and momentum and vitality. You know, I think a lot of people in this room, myself included, probably wouldn't be caught dead at a conference unless it was like this, like the anti-conference, organized by and for the very people whose blood, sweat, and tears are shaping the field. And these are people who haven't found a lot of time to talk about what they're doing because they're too busy just rocking it out and doing it. But judging from the conversations I've had just in the last 15 minutes between registration and now, I don't know that a conservatory anywhere has felt more alive and more less like a conservatory and more pulsating with ideas and with the need to make the work we do more shared, more generous, more collaborative, and even more awesome. And I'll say for starters that it's such an honor to be here at this gathering with the older generation of artists, with the Kronoses and Voltis among us. You know, it's easy to forget, given their success, that these guys paved the way, with no one really telling them how it was done. And they have boldly blazed a clearing for the younger generation of artists taking risks on us when they could have easily made much safer decisions, and we stand on their shoulders. It's also a huge honor to be here among my peer groups, those who graduated from school 10, 15 years ago with the batty idea of joining the new music circus and creating environments that would enable us to make and support each other's work rather than waiting for somebody to do it for us. And these groups have taken the clearing and created our scene. We've played in each other's bands, we've sat on each other's boards before we even knew what a board was supposed to do. We have held each other's hands through organizational growing pains, and for this reason, I'm so glad we have the NMG therapy room. I'm gonna give and get enough hugs there for the whole season. We've shared triumphs and also total hot mess disasters of concerts, and we've likely ruined each other's livers with rounds of drinks post-show, trying to figure out, let's face it, how to find our ass in the dark with both hands. But, I have to say that the biggest honor of all for me today is to be here with the younger generation of groups. The bands and also the publishing houses, the blogs, the electronic music collectives, the artist-run festivals, composers guilds, on and on and on. Those who are trudging through their first 10 years and are navigating the challenges of this wildly complex but also wildly alive time that we're in the year of the sheep. And to you guys, to the younger generation, I just want to say I know firsthand how hard it is to get through your first decade as a new music outfit. And I know also how even more grueling it is to get through your first 5. And how actually the hardest thing of all is surviving year 1. It is fucking hard. You guys are the hardest working people in show business. You work other jobs, you play in other bands, you teach, you study, you balance countless competing demands on your time, you sleep very little, you check your email on your 5-minute breaks in your day job, and in those brief moments you make brave artistic decisions that have enormous financial and personal sacrifices. You also definitely manage complex interpersonal dynamics that would make most human resources people at real companies in the corporate world just go home and cry and throw in the towel. But you don't throw in the towel. You keep on keeping on. You are badasses. And I wish that I could write every single one of you a check for $1 million, that we could all start like Ensemble Contemporain did, with government-subsidized salaries and state-of-the-art buildings and the utopian notion of stability for an experimental art form. And I have confidence that everybody in this room would do extraordinary and also extraordinarily different things with even a sliver of those resources. But we're not here to talk about what we wish we had. We're a room full of dreamers, absolutely, but we wouldn't be gathered here if we weren't also a room full of doers. We need to make music, we need to make it on our terms, and if existing structures and organizations and funding models don't allow us to do that, we will simply create the structures and organizations and economic modalities that will allow us to do the work we need to do. Don't believe that's possible? Take a look around this room. There's Alarm Will Sound, which has set an entirely new standard for a 21st century new music band. There's Vocalective, bringing together vocalists and instrumentalists to promote the performance of radical new vocal chamber music. There's Headless Monkey Attack, pioneering electronic applications of new technology. There's BCP Music, redefining publishing for emerging composers. There's Blarvuster, blowing open the intersection of a chamber ensemble and a rock band. There's Arion Flutes, expanding flute repertoire and outreach, reminding me why I play this silly tube of metal also. There's Sideband, making listeners reassess the role of computers in music. There's Animated Notation, documenting the emerging field of real-time music notation. There's the Left Coast Ensemble, going strong in their 3rd decade of presenting groundbreaking chamber music. There's Wild Rumpus, shaking it up here in San Francisco and advocating fiercely for underrepresented composers. There's Eve Bulgarian and Brim, kayaking the length of the Mississippi. There's Hotel Elephant, rocking their current season, Speak Out, inspired by politically and personally charged works. There's the Guerrilla Composers Guild, also shaking it up here in San Francisco, underground, catalyzing new audiences, doing amazing work. There's Nouveau Classical Project, reinventing the concert experience as a hybrid ensemble and production hub, and becoming some serious fashionistas in the process. There's permutations, concert series, creating an invaluable support system for new music. There's nuts and bolts music, demystifying the landscape with critical discourse on components of new work. There's The Artificialist, another indispensable new music criticism blog covering really important work in the LA area. There's Switchboard Music Festival, supporting and creating so much amazing music here in San Francisco. There's Expano, the radical Brooklyn community-based new music center. Think Darmstadt meets Cheers is like my favorite description of this badass space. There's the New Music Bake Sale, going, 6 years strong this year? And getting us all fat every March. There's Till by Turning, developing an entirely new body of groundbreaking work by women composers. There's Transient Canvas, creating visionary new repertory for bass, clarinet, and marimba. There's the Incendiary Cycle, exploring the landscape and history of California through free jazz and black metal. There's the Living Earth Show, pushing the boundaries of electroacoustic music. There's Your Music Bus, brand new initiative, really, really awesome, providing college-age composers with the opportunity to have their works performed by the best in the field. There's Common Sense Composers Collective, whose rule, I love this, is if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own. There's Hot Air Music Festival, making a scene here in San Francisco. There's Omaha Under the Radar, making a scene in Omaha. There's Evolution Contemporary Music Series, making a scene in Baltimore. There's Post Classical, making a scene in DC. There's Wild Up, making a scene in LA. And the list goes on and on and on. And the crazy and wonderful thing, guys, is that this is just a small fraction of the new music ecosystem, making a scene all over this country, in big cities, in small cities, in rural areas, in stadiums, in churches, on boats, in buses, in living rooms, on street corners, all over the fucking place. The choreographer, Liz Lerman, choreographer and teacher, one of my favorite thinkers on contemporary culture. She's an artist who's spent her career with one foot in the theater and one foot in the community. And she's always interrogating our assumptions about both spaces. And she said recently in an interview, it may look as if the artist is behaving like an activist, when really all she's doing is building a world that she wants to live and work in. And this seems obvious and simple, but it stopped me in my tracks. And it made me think that whenever people ask me if I became an activist or a producer or whatever we're gonna call it, of new music, out of necessity or by choice, I feel a little bit like I do when some well-meaning relative at like a Thanksgiving gathering asks me if I think that being gay is genetic or environmental. In other words, am I a freak because something went wrong in the gene pool or because something went wrong in my upbringing? And, the truth is I have no idea and I don't really care. I'm all ears if the experts, scientists, social behaviorists, can illuminate this for me in my lifetime, but I don't really know what benefit that will have to my understanding of my life and the way that I love through it. And I feel sort of the same way about the assumed dissonance of being an artist and being a producer of your own and your bandmates and colleagues' art. Every one of us gathered in this room does daily, like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers routines, wearing the various hats that we wear, right? Like putting them on, taking them off inside and outside of the rehearsal studio and the airplane and the day job and the office job and the dream space. And we all know that reinvention of ourselves, of our artistic practices, and necessarily of the organizational and financial functionality that makes that artistic work possible, this is a daily practice. And we also know that none of it happens in a vacuum. Would we have built, and would we be building organizational practices that are so closely aligned with our artistic ones and that are as malleable and adaptive as we need them to be in order to create our best work if we'd had these things handed to us? The truth is, I don't know. I've never lived in that world, so I can't answer that question. There's no such thing as a handbook for this kind of work. In the wise words of Lainie, we're making it up as we go. There is not a canonical way to be a 21st century new music scene. We're all just figuring it out together. And so without a handbook, it's about agency, and it is about activism. It's about not letting the existing structures the market, the academy, insert any other arbitrary entity here, dictate what art we're gonna make, how we're gonna make it, who we're making it for. And agency for us as artists is also importantly about inquiry. It's about embracing the ineluctable change that comes from asking the burning questions about all of the shit that we don't know. You know, what is the music of our time? How do we make it? What do we call it? Why do we make it? Where do we make it? For whom do we make it? How do we sustain it? It's this never-ending line of questions and what I believe to be the innate social responsibility that it inspires that has in some way or another given everyone at this gathering the momentum to do the critical work that we're doing. How to curate a concert, how to commission a new piece, how to get people to show up, what to charge, if to charge, how to talk about it, how to write about it, where to stage it, how to make a budget once you have a budget, how to pay people fairly, how to build a world that we want to live and work in. Do we do this because we have to? Absolutely. But do we discover in the process of that doing that it is indeed very artistically stimulating to be driving production from a place of musical impulse rather than the other way around? Yeah, we do discover that. Is it easy? No fucking way. It's hard. It's hard in year 1. It's hard in year 15. It's still gonna be hard in year 50. And friends, as scary as this seems, and it is scary, both to the rookies and the veterans. I mean, I'm terrified every time I start a new project. I think we can take comfort in the fact that there's actually nothing new about this line of inquiry leading to radical, artistic, social, civic, and organizational action. It's the story of the AACM. It's the story of the Worcester Group. It's the story of the Living Theater, of Luigi Nono, of John Zorn and the Stone, of Laurie Anderson, of Pauline Oliveros and the Deep Listening Institute, of Charles Ives, of John Cage, also of community art centers, of public libraries, Samizdat. The list goes on and on and on, and it's bound by a dazzling maze of interconnectivity and shared knowledge across disciplines and aesthetics and histories and love. The story is the same. And as Vivian Meyer says, there's nothing new under the sun. The thing that binds us together is the same. And I would venture to say that it's just that we have a bigger responsibility now in the early 21st century with so many more of us doing the work and so much more at stake to make happen for one another what simply won't happen if we stand on the sidelines. So in the midst of this free fall, how do we define success for new music in the early 21st century? What does that look like? Well, you know, in the corporate world, this is easy because the currency is money and the method is competition. In the cultural world, this is anything but easy because our currency is ideas and our method is and must be collaboration. And as musicians, as avid listeners and seekers of sounds, we're collections of everything we've ever heard. You know, whether we recognize it or not, we are walking vessels and sponges of one another's musics and ideas. And as organizations, we're similar collections of one another's practices. Generosity inspires generosity, bravery begets bravery. Every time you make a courageous decision as an artist, as a producer, as a presenter, as a blogger, as a teacher, as a funder, as a friend, as a human, you're changing the field. Stephen Schick, one of my dearest friends, and also the San Francisco Contemporary Music Players artistic director, he said a few years ago when he was being honored at the Mata benefit, commissioning a piece of music by a young composer is one of the most optimistic things that you can do. And it's so beautiful. You know, every time a piece of new music is brought into being, the world has changed. I mean, call me a hippie, but I grew up in California, and I'm in California now, so I can say that. At least for another 8 hours before I go back to New York. But, you know, even if 10 people show up to that premiere, you have changed them, and you've changed the field. And there are no metrics for this kind of contribution. I mean, believe me, grant panels won't look at it. But we have to remind each other at this gathering that this is the balefire of our work together. It's one piece at a time, one premiere at a time, one transformation at a time. And every incremental step is significant. Ryan Ross Smith of Animated Notation refers to this as the band mentality. It's better to get out there and do it than not, regardless of what, if anything, results. Every time a review a premiere rather, is reviewed in a publication, whether it's a tiny blog or whether it's the paper of note, whether it's a shiner of a review or a stinker, the new music ecosystem has changed in that moment. It's a contribution that benefits all of us. And the idea that a new music band fresh out of school that was self-organizing and playing its own arrangements and compositions would get a New York Times review in the year 2003 was totally preposterous until Alarm Will Sound did it in 2003. And then poof, another clearing was made. Not just for that group's unstoppable career, but for dozens of other like-minded groups forming around that time. Every time a dollar is raised by a new music ensemble toward the production of a new work, that's a dollar toward the larger ecosystem of new music. It matters. And every time a grant is won by a new music ensemble, no matter how small it is, that changes the field for all of us. And in the same way that we're not competing for audiences, we're creating audiences. We're not competing for grant money, we're creating grant money. We're building a world that we all want to live and work in. When ICE got our very first grant from the Driehaus Foundation in 2004, it was for $5,000, and this was after 3 years of being rejected for every single proposal. I love to tell undergraduates when they ask about fundraising the story of ICE in the first 3 years is that in year 1 I wrote 13 proposals, 13 were rejected. In year 2 I wrote 15, 15 were rejected. In year 3 I wrote 17, and 16 were rejected, but we got one little grant from the Driehaus Foundation, and I thought the sky was raining gold. Because, you know what? It was. The $5,000 went a long way. And Driehaus didn't even fund new music at the time. These were grants intended for experimental theater groups. New music wasn't even on the radar. But that then became the grant that other young Chicago new music groups got. A few years later, Del Niente, and then Third Coast Percussion, and many others. And now they, in turn, are creating an even bigger clearing for the outpouring of new groups starting up in Chicago. And if we see ourselves jonesing for space in a crowded world, well, then that's what we're going to do. But if we see ourselves, as I think everyone in this room has so selflessly done, working together to build a robust and diverse ecology whose various parts are effortlessly correlative in their ability to inspire and change one another, well, then the sky's the limit. The space for new music to flourish can be as large and porous and as awesome as we need it to be. As Judah Adachi from Evolution says, our community seems more interconnected, accessible, and inclusive than ever before. I feel like anything's possible. And we've variously referred to what we do as new music, contemporary music, post-classical music, experimental music. The one I like to use at a bar when someone sees me with my instrument cases and it's like, what kind of music do you play? I just say weird music. The truth is that there are problems with all of these words. Language is impermanent, and not one of these words accurately describes what we do, what this room full of people does, what's happening here. And we've variously referred to our hybrid roles in this amorphous movement as activists, as entrepreneurs, producers, advocates, organizers. All these words, too, have problems and associations, and they pigeonhole us as one thing or another. We variously refer to the way that we navigate the creation of this evolving new music movement as a model. But models would imply that we know what we're doing, which we know is not the case. So what do we call the work that we're making? What do we call our roles in it? And what do we call the story we're writing as we build the work that we want to live and work in? So I say we just break it down. Let's call what we do music. Let's call our roles in it human. And let's call our modality, our way of doing it, love. Anne Carson, one of my favorite writers of all time, says that it's so much easier to tell a story about how people wound one another than of what binds them together. So, fellow musicians, hydra-headed beings, fear-conquering humans, history shapers, doers, badasses, lovers, brave and brilliant bandmates and friends, let's remember what binds us, and let's tell that story, the harder story to tell, and let's keep on keeping on. Thank you so much.
On that note, why don't we all repair out? And I don't know what time it is because I got lost in that speech as much as you did. How much time do we have? It's 10:40. We got 20 minutes until everything begins. So please introduce yourselves. If we don't know you, please go to as much stuff as you can. Please feel free and wander in and out of things. Please patronize the lovely cafe. Please have a great time and do everything Claire said because I know I'm going to.
And just one more plug for the therapy room that Claire mentioned. The therapy room, I wish I could spend all my time in the therapy room because I need so much therapy. The people in that room are going to help you with anything you need help with. We have people who are going to help you get your music out to social media. We're going to have people who can get your music listened to with PR, finesse, and brilliance. We're going to have people who just know the entire music scene and can help you with whatever your particular issue or concern or dream is. So really, we're going to have, I'm going to go right now, because I haven't done it yet. I'm going to go put times, and you can sign up for a time, so you don't have to be waiting on a line, but I assume there will be throngs of people coming and having quick conversations. I recommend coming to the therapy room with a couple of focused questions so that you can milk these brilliant people for all they are worth, okay? But other than that, yeah, you have the schedule. Go forth, meet each other, do amazing things. That is it.